The tension in the room was suffocating. My mother-in-law's eyes turned red with anger. Before I could react, suddenly she grabbed the baseball bat and struck me hard on the side of my face. "Hello, my name is Jenna, and I'm 28 years old. I never imagined my life would come to this, a nightmare of violence and betrayal, all hidden behind the facade of what once seemed like a perfect marriage. It all began 3 years ago when I married Marcus, a man I thought was my partner in every sense of the word. Little did I know, the reality waiting for me was far more sinister than I ever anticipated. Marcus and I met in college, full of dreams and aspirations. We were ambitious, ready to conquer the world together. Our relationship seemed perfect, and when we got married 3 years ago, I believed love would be enough to see us through any challenge. But I was wrong. Things took a dark turn 8 months ago when Marcus lost his job. At first, I didn't mind supporting us. I was proud of the online business I had built from the ground up, earning $30,000 a month. I paid the bills, covered the mortgage, and kept our home running. But instead of showing appreciation, Marcus and his mother, Patricia, saw my success as an opportunity to exploit me. Patricia, a woman in her late 50s with a sharp tongue and an insatiable appetite for control, always found ways to remind me of my duty as a daughter-in-law. Her voice, dripping with false sweetness, was a constant reminder of the power she wielded. "Jenna," she would coo, "you're making so much money. Surely you can spare a little more for the family." The demands started small, a few $100s for a spa day, a new handbag. Marcus, who had once been my greatest supporter, encouraged me to give in, insisting it was just to keep the peace. I relented, thinking it was harmless. But as time passed, Patricia's requests became more outrageous, and Marcus's inaction became more glaring. One evening, Patricia called me into the living room. Marcus sat beside her, avoiding my gaze, his shoulders hunched. I could tell something was wrong. Patricia's face was set in a grim line, her eyes narrowing as she spoke. "Jenna," she began, her voice laced with authority, "this house is outdated. We need to renovate, and it will cost $70,000. You can afford that, right?" My chest tightened. I had already been carrying the financial burden of our household, and the idea of spending such an enormous amount on unnecessary renovations was infuriating. "Patricia," I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady, "I've been paying for everything. The house is fine the way it is. I can't afford to spend that kind of money right now." Patricia's expression darkened, and she stood up abruptly, her frustration bubbling to the surface. "You're being selfish," she snapped. "Don't you care about our family's comfort? All that money you make, and you won't even invest in your own home." I looked at Marcus, hoping for some support. But he sat there, silent and defeated, refusing to meet my eyes. The sense of betrayal I felt was suffocating, and I couldn't hold back any longer. "Maybe Marcus should think about getting a job instead of leaving everything to me," I said, my patience worn thin. Patricia's eyes blazed with rage. In a sudden, terrifying burst of anger, she lunged for the baseball bat leaning against the wall. Before I could react, she swung it at me with all her strength. The impact was brutal, and I stumbled back, pain radiating through my skull as tears spilled from my eyes. "What the hell, Patricia?" I gasped, clutching my cheek. I turned to Marcus, desperate for him to defend me. But he sat frozen, watching his mother's attack as if it were nothing. Patricia's voice was venomous. "You think you can disrespect us?" she spat. "You're nothing without this family." That night, my world shattered. Marcus left the house, conveniently disappearing with friends, leaving me to fend for myself. Alone and broken, I packed my belongings. The pain in my face was excruciating, but the pain in my heart was worse. I knew I had no choice but to leave, to reclaim my life before it was too late. As I drove away from the nightmare that had become my life, tears blurred my vision. Yet beneath the heartbreak, there was a spark of something new, a fierce determination to take back control. This was only the beginning. The following days felt like a whirlwind of emotions as I settled into my parents' home. They were horrified when they saw the bruises on my face and the haunted look in my eyes. My mother pulled me into a tight embrace, her voice breaking with worry. "You're safe now, Jenna. We'll protect you." Their warmth and support provided me with a sense of security I hadn't felt in a long time. Yet, as the physical bruises began to heal, the emotional wounds felt deeper than ever. I couldn't shake the anger that boiled inside me. Marcus and Patricia had taken so much from me, and I knew I couldn't let them get away with it. One evening, as I sat at the kitchen table, lost in thought, my phone rang. Marcus's name flashed across the screen. My hands trembled as I picked up the call, a mix of anger and anxiety coursing through me. "Jenna," Marcus's voice came through, softer than I'd ever heard it. "Can we talk?" "Why?" I snapped, struggling to keep my emotions in check. "So you can justify what happened." He paused, and I could hear the guilt in his voice. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't know what to do that night. Mom, she lost control, and I thought staying quiet would calm her down. I never expected it to go that far." A bitter laugh escaped me. "You didn't know what to do," I repeated, my voice trembling with anger. "She hit me with a baseball bat, Marcus, and you just sat there. Do you have any idea how betrayed I felt?" He sighed, the guilt in his voice only deepening. "I know I failed you, but please don't file for divorce. We can work this out. I'll make things right, I promise." My grip on the phone tightened. "Make things right?" I echoed, my resolve hardening. "The only thing that's right for me now is reclaiming my life. I'm done being your mother's target and your financial crutch. I'm filing for divorce." He tried to plead with me, but I ended the call, my heart pounding. I had made my decision, and nothing he said could change that. In the days that followed, I met with a lawyer to discuss my options. We gathered evidence of the financial abuse and physical assault, preparing for what would surely be a difficult legal battle. But Marcus and Patricia weren't finished with their manipulations. A week later, as I sat in the living room with my parents, there was a knock at the door. My mother exchanged a worried glance with me before answering. Marcus and Patricia stood on the porch, their faces uncharacteristically subdued. My heart raced as I approached, bracing myself for whatever they had come to say. "Jenna, we just want to talk," Marcus said, his voice shaky. Patricia, who usually wore a mask of calm, looked almost desperate. I crossed my arms, keeping my distance. "What do you want?" I demanded. Patricia's tone softened, but I could sense the underlying manipulation. "Jenna," she said, her voice dripping with false sincerity, "I made a terrible mistake. We're here to apologize and make things right." I felt the familiar anger rising within me. "Make things right?" I spat. "You attacked me, and Marcus did nothing to stop you. You both took advantage of me, used me for my money, and treated me like I was nothing." Marcus looked at me, his desperation evident. "Please, Jenna, tell us what we can do to fix this." I hesitated, the power in my hands feeling strange and exhilarating. "If you really want to make amends," I said, my voice firm, "you need to transfer the house into my name. That's the only way I'll even consider forgiving you." Patricia's eyes widened, and her mask of calm slipped. "Are you serious?" she hissed. "You're asking for too much." I stood my ground, refusing to be intimidated. "No, I'm asking for what I deserve. You've taken enough from me," I replied. Marcus exchanged a panicked look with his mother, but he finally relented. "Fine," he said, defeated. "We'll do it. Just, please don't leave us." Patricia's face twisted with barely concealed fury, but she knew she had no choice. "We'll get it done," she muttered, her voice laced with bitterness. As they left, I knew this wasn't over. I had gained some control, but the fight was far from finished. The days that followed were a mix of anxiety and cautious hope. I met with my lawyer to ensure the transfer of the house would be legally binding, and free from any tricks or loopholes Marcus and Patricia might try to pull. My parents stood by me, providing endless reassurance, but the tension never left. The sense of dread lingered, like a storm waiting to break. Finally, the day came for Marcus and Patricia to return with the legal documents. I sat at the kitchen table, my heart pounding as they walked in. Marcus looked nervous, while Patricia wore a forced smile that did little to hide her anger. "Here are the papers," Marcus said, placing the documents on the table. His voice wavered, and I could sense his desperation. I picked up the pen, my hand steady. "You do understand what this means, don't you?" I said, looking Marcus straight in the eye. "This isn't just about the house. It's about me taking back control of my life." Patricia's face darkened with rage. "You're throwing away your family for a piece of property," she spat, her voice dripping with venom. I met her gaze, unflinching. "Family?" I shot back. "You treated me like a bank, not a family member. This is about respect and independence, something you never gave me." With that, I signed the papers. Relief washed over me, and I felt the weight of their control begin to lift. The house was mine now, a symbol of my newfound freedom. But Marcus's expression changed. His earlier desperation hardened into something darker, and his voice took on a menacing edge. "You think this is over?" he said quietly, his eyes narrowing. "You have no idea what you've started." A chill ran down my spine, but I refused to show any fear. "I'm not afraid of you anymore," I said, my voice steady. "This is the last time you'll manipulate me." Patricia stepped forward, her eyes blazing. "You'll regret this, Jenna," she snarled. "We're not done with you yet." My father, who had been watching silently from the doorway, stepped in. "That's enough," he said, his voice firm. "You need to leave. Now." Marcus and Patricia stormed out, but the threat they left behind felt like a noose tightening around my neck. I knew they wouldn't give up easily, and I braced myself for whatever they had planned. A few days later, I was sitting in my parents' living room, trying to focus on work, when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You've made a huge mistake. You won't get away with this." My hands trembled as I read the words, but I forwarded the message to my lawyer. He assured me that this only strengthened our case, and reminded me that I had the law on my side. Despite his reassurances, the fear remained. Marcus and Patricia had already shown what they were capable of, and I knew desperate people could do dangerous things. Still, I refused to let them intimidate me. I had fought too hard to back down now. The court date for the divorce and property proceedings finally arrived. My parents were by my side, their presence a source of strength. As we walked into the courtroom, I took a deep breath, ready to face Marcus and Patricia one last time. Marcus sat at the defense table, looking worn and anxious. Patricia was beside him, her face twisted with bitterness. The judge called the case, and my lawyer presented the mountain of evidence we had gathered. Financial records of my sole contributions, the police report detailing Patricia's assault, and the threatening messages were laid out before the court. Marcus squirmed in his seat, his confidence visibly eroding. When it was Marcus's turn to speak, he tried to paint himself as the victim. "Your Honor," he began, his voice shaking, "Jenna has exaggerated everything. We never intended to hurt her. We were just trying to keep our family together." The judge's gaze was steely, and he didn't seem convinced. My lawyer didn't let Marcus's statement go unchallenged. "Your Honor, Jenna has suffered immense abuse at the hands of these two. The evidence is clear and undeniable," he said, his voice firm. I took a deep breath as the judge turned to me. "Do you have anything to add, Jenna?" he asked. I stood, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. "Your Honor, for years I endured financial exploitation, emotional abuse, and violence. When I finally stood up for myself, they tried to silence me with threats. I'm here to reclaim my life and my freedom." The courtroom was silent as the judge considered the evidence. Finally, he spoke. "Based on the evidence presented, I grant Jenna full ownership of the house and approve the divorce." Marcus and Patricia, your behavior is reprehensible. Patricia will face assault charges, and Marcus, you will be held accountable for your involvement in the threats. A restraining order will be placed against both of you, and any further attempts to intimidate Jenna will have severe legal consequences. Relief flooded through me, and I felt a heavy weight lift from my shoulders. I had fought for my freedom, and I had won. My parents hugged me, their pride and love shining in their eyes. As Marcus and Patricia left the courtroom, defeated, I knew I was finally free. As Marcus and Patricia left the courthouse, I could see the defeat etched into their faces. Marcus tried to approach me one last time, but a security guard quickly stepped between us, escorting him away. Patricia glared at me with pure hatred, but I felt no fear. I had faced their worst and emerged stronger. The days that followed were a whirlwind of rebuilding my life. The house, which was now legally mine, became a symbol of my new beginning. I poured my energy into redecorating and making it truly my own, a safe haven free from the shadows of Marcus and Patricia's control. My business flourished as I focused on my work, channeling my pain into productivity. The support from my parents was unending, and their love wrapped around me like a protective shield. But the trauma wasn't easy to shake off. Nightmares would often wake me in the middle of the night, and I found myself constantly looking over my shoulder. The text message from the unknown number had left a scar of paranoia, a reminder that Marcus and Patricia weren't completely out of my life. My lawyer, however, remained vigilant, and together we built a strong defense against any further harassment. One afternoon, as I sat in the sunlit kitchen with my mother, sipping tea and discussing plans for the future, there was a loud knock at the door. My mother tensed, and I felt a familiar rush of anxiety. My father opened the door cautiously, and to my surprise, a police officer stood on the porch. "Jenna," he said, looking at me, "I'm here to inform you that Patricia has been taken into custody for violating the restraining order and attempting to intimidate a witness." The officer's words were both a relief and a shock. Her actions, including the threatening messages and recent harassment, have serious legal consequences. Tears of relief filled my eyes as I realized the nightmare was truly coming to an end. Patricia's desperate attempts to control me had finally caught up to her. Marcus, I learned, had been issued a final warning, with the threat of jail time hanging over his head if he dared to cross any more boundaries. The law was on my side, and for the first time in a long while, I felt safe. With Patricia behind bars and Marcus too frightened to defy the restraining order, I began to truly heal. I took up hobbies I had abandoned, like painting and gardening, finding joy in the small moments I had missed while living under their oppression. My parents and I celebrated my newfound freedom with a quiet dinner, and the house, my house, was filled with laughter and warmth. Every day was a step toward rebuilding not only my life, but also my sense of self. The bruises had long faded, but the strength I had discovered remained, a testament to my resilience. My business continued to thrive, and I found solace in the independence I had fought so hard to reclaim. The house became a symbol of my strength, a place where I could grow and thrive without fear. The journey had been grueling, and the scars would always be a part of me, but I had survived. I had fought for my freedom and won, and with each sunrise, I felt more hopeful about the future, ready to embrace the life I had reclaimed. Thanks for watching. If Jenna's story inspired you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more powerful stories. Drop a comment to share your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. And remember to hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Stay strong and see you next time.